Welcome to my YouTube channel, One Race, the Human Race, All Human. Today is Saturday, September 18th, 2021. We have to remember that lies have been a part of our country from the foundation. In fact, when the first African indentured servants came in 1619, and slaves too, they created what? What is slavery? It's free labor. Work night and day, day and night, we don't pay you anything, right? And then they created lies saying, oh, these people, they're not equal to others. They're property. They're not human. That was a lie, right? 1619, a lie. And so the other case of John Punch in Virginia in 1620, where the three indentured servants ran away. Two of them were white, one was African American. And to the two white ones, they got, what, 5 more years of indentured servitude. To the black one, they said, what? You're going to be a servant for the rest of your life, which is what? Slavery. Case of John Punch, 1620, Virginia. So lies have been with us for a very, very, very long time. There's one race, and that's the human race. And all people on this planet Earth should be treated equally with dignity and respect. Everyone, everywhere, should be treated with kindness and love, compassion.
January 6th. I think justice for January 6th would have been the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump, the calling out of people that are responsible, which I'm committed to doing. And lastly, I think it's time we stop as a party or any leaders accepting that somehow these
He's on the Hill for us. Ali, let's talk about kind of the political response to this whole thing. What we're hearing inside of Congress, especially from Republicans on the demonstration today.
Well, because certainly, Yasmin, Democrats have been outspoken about how concerning a rally like this is. On the other side of things, though, Republicans mostly mum on this rally. Yes, they didn't attend, but at the same time, this is not a rally that not attending means a condemnation of. Because remember what people outside of this building where I'm standing were gathering for today. They were gathering in sympathy and support for the hundreds of people who stormed this building because they wanted to disrupt Congress from certifying the election results because their guy didn't win. Since January 6th, hundreds of people have been arrested. Dozens of them have since pled guilty in court. Those cases are still making their way through the legal system. That's probably going to take years for us to finally see the end of all of these cases around January 6th. And still, given all of that, Republicans not condemning what happened not condemning this kind of a rally in support of the violence on January 6th, and at the same time, also not supporting efforts from things like the January 6th Select Committee to get to the bottom of what happened here so that it cannot happen again. One of the few exceptions to that is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Listen to what he said before this rally happened. This was earlier this week. Listen to how he put it.
I think it's ironic that, the rallying cry is justice for January 6th. I think justice for January 6th would have been the impeachment and removal of Donald Trump, the calling out of people that are responsible, which I'm committed to doing. And lastly, I think it's time we stop as a party or any leaders accepting that somehow these ideas of oath keepers, which is basically a militia that wants to overthrow the government, that's okay.
And Yasmin, in this building, there's a lot of partisan fights that happen over things like policy. That's why lawmakers are sent here, to debate the finer points and eventually come to consensus. What days like today remind you, though, is that within the Republican Party, there is such a larger and more foundational debate about the moral things that they will stand for regarding the underpinnings of democracy. It's only more evidenced when you see people like Congressman Gonzalez deciding it's not worth the fight for the safety of his family to continue moving forward in politics. That's a concerning trend here as we track what happens after January 6th.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we're going to talk more about that coming up. Ali,
He's a conservative Republican congressman from Ohio. He voted for the impeachment of Donald Trump, and now he's not going to run for re-election.
Thank you, as always. Great to see you. So the turnout for today's far-right rally was much smaller than what was seen on January 6th, of course, and the reason could be far-right extremist groups discouraging people from attending this time around. The Washington Post reporting that, quote, organizers said they expected about 700 attendees, but many influential figures on the far right actually discouraged their followers from showing up, asserting the event was a trap. Want to bring in Frank Figluzzi, former assistant director of counterintelligence at the FBI and MSNBC national security contributor. Frank, thank you for joining us. So one of my assessments with this whole thing was it seems as if the Capitol Hill Police Department didn't want to be caught flat-footed as they were on January 6th. And they wanted to kind of bring out all the stops no matter what happened to make sure they were prepared, even with the National Guard on standby to come in if they needed them, right? But from your assessment, as we were approaching this day, what was the security threat?
There was clearly chatter, particularly a couple of weeks ago, indicating that Proud Boys in particular were thinking about coming, and perhaps in large numbers, and even had been energized by the Biden vaccine mandates that they perceived were just way over the top and the end of the line for them. And then we started to see the chatter change with real concern about being arrested, and that this was a setup, and that the FBI was setting a trap for them. So with conflicting intelligence, the Capitol Police did the right thing. They erred on the side of caution, and that actually worked. And it worked on a couple of levels, Yasmin. First, it just dissuaded the general population from coming, spending money on train tickets and airplanes and getting in their car and going to D.C. in large numbers. And that's a good thing. Secondly, for the extremist groups and the fact that they didn't show today, and because they were concerned about arrest, this sends a message. We're not going to let this happen again. January 6th isn't going to happen again on our watch when the intel indicates the risk is there. And then lastly, we also saw, of course, mainstream or GOP writ large politicians, elected officials, just running away from this event with one key exception. And that is, of course, the former president who released a statement yesterday, kind of, hey, I want to be there in mind and spirit, but I'm not going. So let's get behind these persecuted, unfairly persecuted group of people for January 6th. It's that lie, that notion that caused this rally to exist. So a little early to tell what this really means for the future, but I think it signals something good moving forward for security and for radical rhetoric, not really getting this deep on this particular issue about January 6th.
So here's something else that I heard when I was out there, and it was, of course, conspiracy theories, right? Disinformation. And I asked follow-up questions like, where did you hear that from? Where are you getting your information? What are you reading, right? They told me the election was a lie. They told me Donald Trump is actually still the president and he's going to be president once again. Another individual told me that it was Antifa, it was Black Lives Matter protesters who actually stormed the Capitol. And I stood there and said, it was not, sir. I repeatedly said, it was not, sir. One of the biggest uphill battles, right, it seems as if intelligence communities have, and also social media has, is trying to combat and dispel this misinformation, right? Because it is what is driving kind of a lot of these narratives. Are we doing enough?
No, the short answer is no. And I would point to the need for more regulation of social media platforms. We need to listen to the social media CEOs who are telling us they can't do this by themselves. They need help. So Congress needs to step in and regulate these folks almost like a public utility. Rate them, review them for safety, accuracy. Let's do more in that regard. Secondly, look, we're all in our own echo chambers. People get their news from one or two sources only. They want affirmation. They only hear what they want to hear. The very notion that people thought that January 6th was peaceful and that people are being persecuted unfairly means they're not seeing the videos. They're not seeing the facts of that day. And why is that? They're choosing only one source of media. We've got to be more savvy and intelligent consumers of media. That's in the White House's strategy to counter domestic extremism and terrorism. We need to see that actioned quickly.
I don't know how you see these videos, how you look at these photos and you see peaceful people walking into the Capitol building. I just don't get it. I don't understand how they see it so differently than the majority of Americans and so many people that were there on the ground and watched it happen.
Well, you may have heard even from the organizer today that they're kind of acknowledging, look, there were some violent people here, but we've got these large numbers of people who simply wandered around the building peacefully and they're getting charged unfairly. But the facts don't speak to that. We've got maybe 37 people in the DC jail right now, and that's it, who are being detained because they're a danger. A judge, a prosecutor has said, we can't release these people. They're dangerous. So 60 people have pled guilty already and said, you got me, I did that thing. So this notion that large numbers of people are being unfairly held, detained without due process, it's not true. We've got to get that truth out.
Well, and listen, I spoke to the co-founder of Code Pink, who said, listen, I've been protesting for decades now. I've protested inside the Capitol building. I've been arrested for protesting inside the Capitol building. That is a risk that I take when I make the decision to do that. When you walk inside those walls and you're not supposed to be there as a protester, you can protest. It's part of what is special and great about being an American, but you're taking a risk. And there are consequences to those risks.
Yeah, I think there's a double standard here, right? You know, if it's my cause and my idea that I want to champion, I have the right to protest without being arrested. That's not how it goes, right? The old saying, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Be prepared for the consequences.
Frank Figluzzi, great to see you. Thank you. Still ahead, everybody, booster shots for a few, but not for most of Americans. That is the recommendation from an FDA panel. We're going to get reaction to the move from Dr. Peter Hotez. We'll be right back.